Okay, we're live. We're streaming. I got Tyler Mavison here with me and Susie Weir. We are going to be talking about perks and benefits. This whole the pandemic has pushed us in so many different ways now, and I think having a discussion. I got two people here who are really good at what they do. Tyler is a compensation specialist, and Susie, what don't you do, Susie? Training, development, leadership coaching. You've been in charge of our What People Want from Work survey every single year. Tyler, why don't you kick it off and just talk a little bit about what you do personally?
Sure. Yeah. So, well, when I started at Xenium, I was more of a HR rep role, so did a lot of more of the general HR services. But then I kind of shifted into more comp specific, so designing comp plans, running wage reports, total rewards assessments to kind of see what helping employers kind of develop and kind of reinvigorate their comp packages, comp plans. So I've been doing that for a while now.
Excellent. Susie, shed light on what you do.
So my title is VP of People Development and Culture. So I do a little work in each area. So I design our learning and development curriculum, and I deliver a lot of training to clients. And I also do some one-on-one leadership coaching and some strategic HR work around culture development, performance, strategic HR assessment. So I dabble in a little bit of everything. And then I also oversee our internal HR programs for Xenium.
Yeah, and so I brought you two on to talk about perks and benefits, and we might even dabble a little bit in compensation because we have Tyler here, of course. And we're streaming live from YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So people are on. Feel free to ask questions. I'll monitor those questions throughout this discussion, and then your question might show up on the screen. So we'll go from there. But I wanted to just start with with the pandemic has really changed the way employees are working, and the needs of employees are changing constantly. What have you guys seen that's the needs of employees have shifted in a way? I mean, Tyler, your situation is different than what Susie's situation is, and my situation is different. But have you seen a progression in the way that employers are asking employees what they need and in making that part of their perks and benefits package?
Yeah.
Did you want
me to start? I'll start with some things that I'm seeing. Obviously, people's needs have shifted when this whole last year with the need to social distance. Many organizations had to switch to remote work. Schools were closing, so employees' needs changed. And employers who were really well connected with their employees were adapting to offer them the support that they needed. So in addition to the federal leave, some of that paid leave that was available under the FFCRA, employers were also offering some unpaid types of leave as needed. Well-being and stress reduction programs became important, and a real uptick in utilization of EAP, and really just making sure employees could easily access their behavioral health benefits and provide some education and support around managing anxiety and depression and stress. I think those became really important. Obviously, a lot of teleworking, so making sure that employees have the supplies and the equipment they need. So we're seeing some shifts in benefits and perks that are offered for telework. So providing stipends or allowances for office supplies, internet, or even furniture, in addition to just providing employee with the laptop and the equipment they need to do their work from home. And then telemedicine became important, right? People are not able to get out and see their doctor. How do they utilize their benefits? So making sure that if your plan, which often employer plans have telemedicine, that employees know exactly how to use that. And then the last thing would be childcare resources. And so Tyler can relate to this. He'll tell you his struggles. But, people were left, without any help caring for their kids that were at home. No daycare, no school. And so any support employers could offer with resources to get them the support they need in addition to leave.
Tyler, since Susie kind of queued you up for the whole flexibility, I hope you got a person. I mean, everybody's got a different story, right?
Sure.
My wife, thankfully, is able to care for my kids and is able to do the homeschooling thing. But your situation, you got two working parents. How is that balance like? And I think a lot of employees have your same story.
Right. No, definitely. I think the key with me and with, two working parents as well at home. So it's that flexible, work arrangements, gone are kind of the 8 to 5 time frames when you're trying to get kids situated either on, their learning platform or, get them situated, with breakfast and food and whatnot before your workday starts. And knowing that you will have those interruptions, periodically with, a kid that, a child that needs something from you. So it's having that flexibility where you kind of can be bouncing in and out of, meetings and working from your computer and kind of tending to the kids was important for my wife and I too, especially since we're in meetings a lot of the time.
When we say the word flexibility, what does that mean to you? Because I think everybody has a little bit different definition for it. Some people I've heard even it just means having a laptop, being able to like work wherever I want to work and just be able to like open it up. But for some people like yourself, Tyler, it's like, okay, now I got to put my kid down for a nap and I got to in between like, so how would you define flexibility?
Well, it's kind of what you mentioned. For me, it's those flexible hours. I had a laptop and I had that capability of working, remotely and in different locations. But the time frame, that kind of understanding that, certain periods of the day, I need to be focused on my children and not so much on the work that I'm doing. That can be at a later time. So I think it's that flexible hourly time through the day is what was key for me at least.
Yeah, and I think for those of us who are in office type roles, as opposed to service industry and manufacturing, for example, where we've got to be at a work site to do our job, it's giving people some autonomy and control over their schedule, right? So focusing on, okay, let's agree on a schedule that's going to work for the business and for the employee, right? And let's focus on what are the outcomes or the results that we need and how can we be checking in on a regular basis to make sure that things are moving forward. Because I know for me, part of my mental health, right, is being able to exercise and work out. So I had to quit the gym. Then I started working out at home, but I do that in the morning before work. So I don't have an exact time that I have to be on, which is great. So I can control my schedule so that I have that time in the morning to exercise and work out, so that I can have more energy and I can be in a better mindset for doing my job.
I think one of the biggest challenges about this pandemic is, especially for those that are doing the remote workforce thing, because not everybody is doing the same thing with remote, but for those that are doing remote, I think engagement's probably the hardest thing, like keeping your people engaged. What sort of perks, benefits, or anything have you seen, either of you, that help employees feel more connected, engaged, appreciated?
I can go first to that. What I've seen a lot too is just the more frequent communication check-ins. Having, especially using virtual platforms. Go-to meetings, Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, where you're having that continuous check base on what the employees and their well-being and what's going on, what's working well, what's not working well, how can we improve that. Those constant checks, because you can't see them every day. They're in the office a lot of times, so you have to somehow have that communication and that touch base with employees. But for me, really the key piece has been engagement. It's just continuing those check-ins and communications, increasing, the way to utilize, virtual happy hours, or group fun trivia engagement nights, or the Pictionary boards you can do to kind of help keep it fun and keep it people engaged, but also have that connection with employees. But the communication piece for me has been what I've seen a lot.
Since you just mentioned the couple of activities, are there platforms that you like for those activities to do? Like if you're looking for a fun and engaging thing for people to do together virtually, like what things have you used?
Oh, I think for Xenium we use Excite Team, we use that, was it
Scribble.io, I think.
Scribble.io, where it's kind of like a fun little kind of Pictionary-esque type game where people would come in there and kind of join in and play some fun games. Otherwise, it's really just utilizing platforms like Teams and having those, and Zoom, having those kind of multi-video functions there. But Scribble was one.
Kahoot. We've used Kahoot
for trivia. That was fun.
Yeah.
It's a little spendy though, from what I remember, because
not too bad.
Not too bad. Susie, what about you? Anything from an engagement standpoint that you think is worthwhile talking about?
Yeah, I mean, Tyler said a lot that I agree with. I think the relationship between the supervisor and employee becomes even more important in this situation because employees have individual needs. We've discovered that over this last year. I think making sure that you're offering professional development opportunities, and ways to access conferences, seminars, or even team trainings virtually. So what we've, you all can relate to this, but what we have learned over the last year is you have to try to strike a balance between how much you try to do virtually, even for fun team events, because people who are so chained to their computer for Zoom, reliant on Zoom or Teams for meetings, when you're done with your work, sometimes the last thing you want to do is log in, even though it's a fun, happy hour or team game. Sometimes people have that fatigue. So really getting some feedback, taking a pulse of how your group is doing, your team is doing, and finding that right blend, right? That right amount.
Yeah. And to kind of go on to that too, is also employers should continually focus on like their wellness programs too, because that can be a great engagement factor for their employees, especially now when they're not in the office as much. You can kind of go outside and enjoy the step challenges, or you can do like parks challenges where you go try to hit different parks. I mean, living in the Pacific Northwest, it's great because we have all these natural parks, and if they're open, and some of them are open up now, it's having that engagement where you can kind of create challenges around that. So it's not just staying within your home, but getting outside and getting kind of outdoors.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, but just about the wellness programs in general, because I think that's a humongous opportunity for not only engagement and culture, but like the well-being. Because we talk, like Susie mentioned, mental health is a topic that people are talking about a lot right now. And I think employees are kind of tired of like, oh, let's do a brown bag webinar on mental health. And then like, okay, you're off on your own, versus I think people want actions that they can take. And so structuring a wellness program in a way that's like incenting the right behaviors, whether it's mental or physical or anything like that, that's going to give them incentives on the back end from a benefit standpoint. I think that's cool. I don't know if any employers mastered that. So if anybody's listening that has a perfect program, feel free to chime in. But like, what do you guys think from like when you talk about structuring a wellness program, what can we do to make sure people are engaged and also practicing their physical and mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can speak for us at Xenium. We know what our employer value proposition is because we have solicited input from our employees for years. And so positive relationships and opportunities for people to connect is one of the main drivers of employee motivation and retention for us. So we've mixed some team type opportunities with wellness activities as well as community service activities. So one of our most popular wellness challenges, and people get credit for this, that then applies to lower out of pocket for their health insurance premiums. But we do the Walk This Way challenge. We've been doing it for years, and people enjoy either the option of just doing the challenge on their own, but a lot of us, because of our workplace culture, like to be in teams. And so we put people in teams. And so even though this last year people were out walking on their own, they still, had their results compiled with their team. So there was some friendly competition. So it kind of addressed the desire to connect with your team, get out and, get some fitness or exercise, and also get your wellness incentive.
Love that. So I think this is the kind of year where, and Tyler, this is probably more your wheelhouse, but like when we talk about communicating our total compensation package, compensation, perks, benefits, the whole thing, especially right now as employers are probably freezing wages in a lot of cases, or they just don't have the money to afford raises at this point until the revenues get back to where they were. How do we communicate with employees about the things that we're doing from a perks and benefits standpoint, whether it's increases there or just more flexibility, or how do we communicate those valuable pieces within the whole compensation package where employees might be questioning, like, hey, why are we not getting raises? What's up with that?
Right. Well, I mean, key is to be transparent. I mean, you cannot communicate, what's going on with the organization and how that translates into compensation, because that's what hits, the employees' pockets. But it's focusing on, if a lot of employers, statistically throughout the COVID are freezing pay, or some are taking pay cuts, especially with at the executive level. So it's, saying we're going to try to focus more on that benefits, the benefits and total reward side to help kind of negate that factor there. So focus on the flexible scheduling, focus on that remote work, focus on stipends that we can give that can help you be productive at home, through, internet stipends for, the cost of internet going up and being on Zoom calls all the time, or, costs for, equipment, internet, or, laptops and computers, as Susie mentioned too, like furniture, office furniture, chairs, and whatnot, that helps make it easier for you as an employee to do your job from wherever you are. But it's really just communicating, it's shifting that focus from communicating, okay, we're going to be doing annual increases this year, to we're going to be focusing more on the benefits and what we can do to help maintain, not only the success of the organization whole, but you as an individual working for our organization.
Susie, you seen anything different or recommend anything different?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime I think of benefits and perks or total rewards, the first thing I think about is, are you getting your return on your investment? And a lot of times we adopt these benefit programs because that's what people in the market seem to be doing. But I think it's worth surveying your employees and soliciting input on probably at least biennial basis every couple of years, just to see what is most important and highest valued by your employees, and then being willing to take your budget and make some adjustments. That's something that we need to do internally. The other thing I'll share from experience is, in our past employee surveys at Xenium, we've always had the lowest scores on compensation and benefits. And that's pretty consistent across most employers, but we were committed to try and shift that perception and that score. And so what we started to do, we looked at all of our benefits and perks And we had a huge list of things that we offered, but we only really covered those in the new hire orientation, right? And so we decided we've got to do some internal marketing and make sure people know all of these cool things we offer: massage, tuition reimbursement, professional development budget, sales referral incentives. I mean, tons of stuff. And so we committed to, we leveraged Brandon and marketing to put together a really cool one-page marketing communication tool. But then we committed to once a quarter highlighting our benefits and perks in our all team meetings that we had. And we also committed to being transparent with our compensation structure, right? And what the pay ranges are for each employee's position and where they fall and why, and reviewing those each year. Now, last year, because of COVID and a drop in revenue, we weren't able to
I think that's the same story for most organizations.
Yeah, and thankfully we got the PPP loans, but we need to kind of look at that again this year and see what we can do. I think employees understand, and we've been pretty transparent, our leadership has, in communicating. We do monthly videos and monthly all team meetings to talk about the state of the business so that people are fully aware of what's going on and why we're doing what we're doing. But we also need to make sure that we're staying competitive in the market for talent, and we're taking care of our people.
Let's pull a thread on that, both from what's the market doing and what do my employees want? So I think you alluded to this a little bit, Susie. We do a survey every single year called the What People Want from Work survey. And that's a great opportunity to ask people in your organization, what do they want? And this could be from a culture standpoint, leadership, perks and benefits, compensation, any of that stuff. We have different categories in that. And then on the other side of the spectrum, just from a market standpoint, are we competitive? Are we attracting the talent that we need? We have a beyond compensation survey that we did one time a couple of years ago. We're going to be running it again, and we'll have information on that at the very end of this. But that's how do my benefits and perks stack up against the market? Because I think so much of this conversation around benefits and perks is about what we need awareness around what we're doing. We need to know what our employees want, and then also how what we're offering stacks up against the market. Either you want to talk about that a little bit, just the importance of being aware and having that information so that you can make business decisions based on what you're going to be offering.
Sure. I mean, so especially when we talk about the benefits at a glance, the one-sheeters where you talk about your perks and your the benefits you offer your organization, it's a great recruiting tool. It's what sets you apart from your other competitors that may not be offering that, and it's very appealing to that potential employee. And then when you take a look at that's the internal side of it, but the external side is you want to take a snapshot of what are people offering, what are some of the things that are being made available to employees, maybe not just in your industry, but as all industries as a whole. So it's great to kind of merge those two and meld those two together to say, okay, well, we have a robust benefits offering here, but also we're being competitive and we're staying competitive with our peers in our industry or across different industries to help recruit those top talent and build your workforce. So I think that's pretty much the key, is kind of melding those two together.
Mm-hmm. Susie, any thoughts on that?
No, not really. Only that I think if you are going to survey your employees, it's always important to remember to follow up and share the results, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
Share, like, here's how we're doing. Here's our strengths. Here's some opportunities, and then commit to at least some action,
right?
Based on the employee feedback.
What have you guys heard of? And you can take a second to think about this, and I can even chime in because I've heard of some unique things. But what sort of outside of the box benefits have you heard employees or employers shifting to this year, especially during COVID. Like, all right, we're going to change our approach because our employees need something different. Can you think of anything that's outside the box just to give people watching maybe something to take back to their organization?
Well, pre-COVID, I was seeing a lot of employers offer more stipends for childcare, or even some situations having in-office childcare facilities set up. I mean, that can be to a larger extent, but definitely stipends for the childcare or transportation. The Max lines here up in the Pacific Northwest. Parking. And with COVID now, there's been a lot of discounts on like DoorDash or those delivery services. To get food and whatnot to employees that are kind of a kind of easy and kind of low cost way to kind of reward employees or offer a benefit to employees that can keep them engaged and happy and motivated. Yeah. Also, I've seen too is discounts on like subscriptions like Spotify or Apple Music. Music subscriptions has been big. If you're at home listening to music doing your work or whatnot, that's kind of been seen that a lot. But I don't know, Susie, you've seen any other things too as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to our EAP offers at Cascade Centers, but also another organization who offers concierge services. So just helping with your basic at-home responsibilities, right? So, running errands, picking up groceries, things like that. So there are some concierge services out there that might be part of your EAP or certainly other vendors. Health coaching. So an extension of a wellness program could include access to a one-on-one coach that really helps you develop your own plan. So I think those are some ideas. Another opportunity could be offering online fitness classes or access to that since, the gyms have been closed or people don't feel comfortable going to gyms. So I think there are a lot of cool creative ideas. We even were putting our heads together at Zenny, and we never came up with a great solution, but we were thinking, how could we create like a, shared daycare type thing, like pull all our resources together since we have a lot of working parents, because that is a big need for our demographic. We never came up with an ideal great solution for that, but I think it's just really maybe even leveraging some of the ideas and input of your employees too might help.
Yeah. If people listening have some ideas about like unique benefits, put them in the comments below, and I'd love to showcase some of those. While we're talking, I'll monitor that. But I've seen some unique things like you talk about subscriptions like a Headspace or the Mindset or mindfulness apps. Those are good. Like Beachbody subscriptions, like you're describing with can't go to the gym. So that's an option. The DoorDash thing. It's funny you say that, Tyler, because I see ads all the time from DoorDash saying like, because I must have, HR in my title on LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff like that, where it's targeting me like HR manager here, subscribe your employees to DoorDash. It's a great benefit. So these companies are really starting to figure it out and market some of these programs to them. So I think it's pretty interesting. But one thing that I've thought a lot about, and I'll give credit to Kelly Woodworth on our team for this one because she's talked about it a lot in the years past. But I just love this idea of a menu of benefits offerings. So like you have your baseline benefits, the 401k, the health benefits, all this stuff, and then wouldn't it be cool if there was also a monetary budget for a menu of options to choose from? That's like, okay, you have an extra $2,000 for the year. I'm just making up that number, but you can pick from any of these things. It could be tuition reimbursement. It could be extra PTO days. It could be access to these mindful apps or health coaching or whatever. But I love that idea because it puts the control and the power in the employee's hand versus some cookie cutter program.
Right.
respond to that? What do you think?
I mean, it's the a la carte method is definitely, I've seen that a lot, and especially with on tech, and it's kind of up and coming. Administratively, it's going to be pretty difficult. But
I'm not going to worry about that part. Somebody else.
But it does assess the need for identifying your employees that may not want, maybe they're the older generation that doesn't need paid parental leave in their benefits package, and they want something else. They want something different, or tuition reimbursement. That doesn't appeal to them. So having that possibility, that option to kind of select the things that are necessary for them in their allocated tiered price range goes a long way, and it helps the mentality of the employee. I mean, it's definitely a great idea, and it's been being put in practice with several employers. But I think that the key is to try to figure out the administrative necessity of that, and figure out how to.
Yeah, I think you can make it work, because I'm thinking about obviously I have my HR hat on, and I'm thinking, okay, this sounds like a nightmare to administer.
Administratively.
But as I'm thinking further through it, your benefit plans, right? So if you're offering, medical insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, certainly your qualified benefit contribution plans like 401k, those things you might just offer as a baseline.
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody gets those. But then when you look at more of the perks, so, like for us, we've got massage benefit, for example. Or it also, it could be some of these other benefits that we've discussed, additional wellness type benefits. You could have those, right? It has the a la carte options that the employee uses their stipend for. And that might be easier to administer, because we have a total rewards user guide that gives instructions to employees on how to utilize those various benefits. And it doesn't really require a ton of administration on our part. So that could be a way to approach it.
What if you also, as I'm hearing you talk, what if you also like structured it much like a flexible spending account in a way that's like, okay, there's this money set aside in this account, and then employees are incurring the expenses, and then they're submitting for a reimbursement. So this practical application for this would be, okay, we're going to allocate $2,000 a year per employee. It's going to sit in this account. And then you go through our benefits team with like, okay, I'm got a 24-hour fitness membership, and here's my monthly expense, and I'm going to get reimbursed for that. Like, could that work that way administratively? Like, could you see it working that way? Maybe it's a terrible idea.
It's possible. I mean, I'd love to hear people's ideas. If anybody's tried anything like this out there, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you personally, each of you, what do you value most, especially during this pandemic? Like if Xenium, or if you worked somewhere else and had all the control over what perks and benefits you'd get offered, what do you want? And Tyler, I'm going to start with you. I have a feeling I know what you want.
I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's definitely the flexible scheduling for me. That's just key for me. It allows me to spend the time with my kids and get them situated, but also have that I can focus in on certain facets of my personal life and work life as well. So for me, it's flexible scheduling 100%. That's what I really enjoy.
Susie, what about you?
Well, for me, I'm really clear on what motivates me.
What's that? Share that with the listeners.
Yeah, I'm pretty clear on that. So it's autonomy, flexibility. I kind of like to run my own show a little bit. So for me, I mean, that's why I've stayed with Xenium, as opposed to even going off and doing my own thing, is I have the ability to do that, and also have access to all of our rewards and perks. So I think, knowing that I am trusted to get my work done in a way that works for me is key. And I think that's also a trend that I think is resonating with a lot of people. Then people are thinking about, okay, when the COVID isolation stuff is over, are we going to fully revert back to the way we were? Or have we learned that some people have been able to be effective and even more effective by having some flexibility? And maybe it's a balance of both working from home and at the workplace. So
yeah, I'll be curious where this all goes because, for employers or workforces that are now all remote, it's like the flexibility was just like on one day, all of a sudden now employees have flexibility. And long term, if we go back to the office, I'll be curious how employers treat that. Because going back to the office, like we're gonna go back to exactly how it was, or are we gonna, lengthen the leash a little bit, so to speak, about giving employees the autonomy and flexibility as you're describing, Susie? I think it's
yeah,
going to be somewhere in the middle of that.
I have a feeling that the expectation of many employees is that there's going to be a little bit more flexibility. So it's probably worth starting to have some of those conversations. For me, I have been saved, like mentally and emotionally, by having the option to come into the office. So I've been able to do a little bit of that during this pandemic and then also work from home. I realize I'm fortunate in that regard. Not everybody has that option, but it's made a huge difference for me. So I think, again, it goes back to understanding what your employees need and how they're motivated and what makes sense for the business. Because for Xenium, one of our biggest strengths is our culture, and people value the relationships with our colleagues. So if we continued to just solely remote, I think we would have some missed opportunities, right? I think that's going to be hard for us to sustain. So, people actually, we did a survey a while back, and over 50% of the people, even early on in the pandemic, over 50% of the people said, as soon as they can come back, they want to come back to the office, right? So we know,
everybody's situation is the same. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really unique to your business, what makes sense, and then also what your employees value.
Yeah.
I definitely foresee it being more of a hybrid approach going forward. Employers also have to be careful lapsing back into that rigidity of a schedule when, for a year and over a year, employees have had that kind of flexible scheduling. It's going to be hard to kind of shift focus there. So I definitely feel, a hybrid approach is probably what's going to be more commonplace post-COVID.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like, personally, what I value is what Susie just was describing, like the autonomy and flexibility, by the way, which are free. Like,
Right.
I mean, as long as you're not losing productivity, of course.
Right. You're not reaching into your pocketbook for that.
But for me, it's like, as an employee, having that flexibility to be like, okay, I'm gonna work out in the middle of the day, and because I have like a bike or a treadmill, or I can go out for a walk or whatever, it's just a lot easier to be able to do that and then come right back to work. Whereas if you're in the office, a lot harder to do that. So I value that as kind of like one of those free benefits. But long term, like I could see reimbursements for like internet and other subsidies that make working at home a little easier, or better equipment or something like that. And because I self-invested in some of my equipment to make working at home better for myself. So I could see employers, that could be a trend long term. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
yeah, I actually saw a job posting recently, local company, and they were advertising upfront in their posting their philosophy on this, and that they believe in allowing employees to perform their work in a way that works best for them, and that they provide all the equipment and a subsidy
amazing.
For office supplies and so forth. And so I thought that was interesting that they were leading with that in, marketing their company for prospective employees.
And also it does for employers, it opens up your basically your labor pool, your recruiting pool. If you're remote work, you don't necessarily need to focus in on the area that you're headquartered in. You can actually shift focus to other locations and get the top talent from maybe if California and you're in Oregon or whatnot, or conversely, or New York, or you can kind of recruit for the individual, not necessarily the location.
Right.
Yeah, that's really important. I'm glad you brought that up, Tyler, because a lot of employers, there's a huge increase in diversity and inclusion initiatives. And so there's actually money being put towards, right, training employees, right, providing more opportunities for diverse candidates, right? And in our local market, one of the complaints often from local employers is, well, Oregon's not very diverse, right? So if you do have the ability to work remote, your employees have the ability to work remote, why wouldn't you advertise in any market, right? And that increases your chances of getting more diverse candidates as well.
Two things I want to touch on before we end this broadcast. One is PTO. Now, this is a pretty common benefit, but the pandemic, in my opinion, has blown the doors off of PTO because I don't think people are using it the way, because they're home anyways. They're working, and there's the separation between home and work is like it all bleeds together. So are people using PTO the way it's designed right now? And if not, what can employers do about that?
I just don't know if they really have a choice. They can't really go too many places to utilize PTO. So that's it's just kind of sitting there and kind of accumulating. But I don't think that PTO is being used as the way it has been now, just because people are at home. They're not taking those times to, unwind, either using PTO to, work, help with their mental health and kind of relieve stress and do some things that are away from the office. I think their office is their home. So it's kind of, I don't think they're utilizing PTO as it is intended to be used. Susie, what are you seeing that?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things I think of, but to piggyback on what you just said about people not feeling like even motivated to take PTO if there's nothing exciting to look forward to, like a trip, although that's opening up a little bit now. But,
right.
I think from a culture standpoint, leaders need to model self-care and taking PTO and sending the message that this is important, right? And we want you to take advantage of this benefit, even if it's just like what someone might call a mental health day, right?
Right. Can we
taking a break?
Can we destigmatize that, like, please?
Yeah. So you have to consistently remind employees, by the way, because we're in the whirlwind of work all the time. And sometimes we're not looking at our calendar and looking ahead and saying, okay, how can I build in some me time or some rest time? So I think having those regular conversations and leaders modeling that practice is important. The other thing that we run into with the whole PTO, the one bucket of paid leave benefits, is that now that we've got these paid sick leave benefits, right, that are required by the government, then it becomes a little bit harder to track when you've got just one bucket of PTO. So, years back, the trend was, let's just move to one bucket and make it easy. And now, because of the regulatory changes and the administration of that, it's almost feeling like, okay, it might be better to split them apart.
Yeah.
And we don't see a lot of people shifting that way right now, but there's thinking around that. And is that going to be something that's easier? So I anticipate that there might be.
Yeah, I can see that happening because, like, what comes to mind for me is, like, I got this bucket of time and I just want to save it. And there's like, I have nothing to look forward to, so I'm just not going to use it. Whereas if I had like a bucket of mental health days that like expired after a certain amount of time. So let's say like my employer gave me one mental health day a month that I can use or lose it. And you started having leaders model that behavior as you're describing, Susie. okay, taking a mental health day. It's not PTO, it's a mental health day because it's defined that way, much like a sick day would be. I think that would help, by defining what those areas
Yeah.
are instead of having just one giant bucket. Kind of like when I hear people doing like the unlimited PTO, I'm not a huge fan of that just because I don't know if people use it. And there's a whole host of other reasons why I don't really love it, but I don't know. Just a thought. Any thoughts on that?
Well, to touch on your unlimited PTO, I mean, there have been studies that it has the opposite effect. People end up not utilizing the PTO and working.
Yeah, they feel guilty.
Yeah, they feel guilty. So I mean, now it's more switching to having a larger bucket of PTO that you can take, but unlimited seems to be the one that people are like, oh, I don't want to abuse that trust there, so end up not taking anything. But I think, like you mentioned, Brandon, leadership, comes from the top down. Saying if they start utilizing the mental health days and that starts catching on, I think employees will start utilizing the benefit more and more.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both. We're at our time right now, so I want to thank you both for coming on and just sharing some of your expertise. Susie, you were talking earlier about just like asking employees what they want and just being aware of those things. And we have this survey coming up called the Beyond Compensation Survey. It'll be released April 1st, so look out for details on that. But that allows you to you basically submit your information about what your benefit plans and your perks and how many PTO days and holiday days, like very specific information. And then by participating, you get to basically side by side stack up against the pool, the population of people that contribute to that survey. So that's a really exciting one. HR people tend to sign up for that just so they can see how they fare, because I think everybody has the same issue. They want to retain people and they want to attract new talent. So that's really important. But Tyler, Susie, thank you both for coming on this live stream. This is kind of fun. We're doing this Friday coffee at Xenium kind of theme. And we have one on well-being next week with Sarah Bradley that I'm excited about. But any parting thoughts before I end the broadcast? Nope.
Not really. I was just thinking, though, a second ago when we were talking about PTO, I was thinking, wow, when everybody's vaccinated and things are opening up, we might have a large number of people traveling and wanting to go on trips.
Yeah.
So that could be a whole new challenge to deal with is, okay, how can we allow people to utilize their time off when everybody wants to now,
That's true.
take it.
One thing I was thinking of, I can end with that too, is just, employers should be mindful to get a pulse on the market as we're coming out of the COVID pandemic. Wages have kind of stagnated and kind of dipped, but make sure that you're getting a pulse on what the compensation and market trends are for your positions you're hiring, because there's probably going to be a pay compression issue similar we had during the recession. So it's good to be kind of proactive and kind of on top of assessing where the current market is for your roles.
Yeah, well said, Tyler.
Yeah, can I piggyback on that really quick?
Yeah, go for it.
The other thing is that we've seen is that while there may not have been over this past year many pay adjustments, right, due to COVID, there have been pay adjustments due to pay equity analysis.
Right.
So that's another piece of comp that may be worth analyzing. Not just knowing where you're at in relation to the market and being able to communicate your structure to your employees, but also evaluating whether you're paying equitably for the same type of work.
That is a whole nother topic of conversation, but people could reach out to Tyler. He knows all about that stuff.
Yep.
That's what Tyler does. So if somebody wants to ask questions or get in touch with Tyler about how to do that, reach out to him. He's on LinkedIn. Thank you guys. I'm going to end the broadcast now, and thanks for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. See you later.